So, does anyone know who this guy is? Famous painting. Benedict Arnold. Right. And what is Benedict Arnold known for? What? Being a traitor of the U.S. to the British. Yes, he is infamous and has gone down in history along with Judas Iscariot as the name you never want to give to your kid because he betrayed. And yet, as is always the case, he had his reasons for doing it. A couple of months before his infamous betrayal of the British, in March of 1779, he took out a loan for £12,000, which was a ton of money. £12,000 in the 18th century was hundreds of thousands, maybe even close to $1 million today, to buy a mansion, 96-acre mansion called Mount Pleasant, that John Adams once claimed was the most elegant seat in all Pennsylvania. And why might you ask that he bought this huge estate during the war? To marry a girl, of course. Like, he had to impress her father and convince her father to allow him to marry her because his previous wife had just passed away, he was an older gentleman, his wealth wasn't what it was, so he had to convince her that he was wealthy. And her father just happened to be a loyalist who was supporting, or more supportive towards the British, and did never like the Revolutionary War. Around the same time, he was dealing with a court-martial because Benedict Arnold was really tight with George Washington and the Continental Congress, but as that time was, it was more about local authority, and so the local magistrates in Philadelphia did not like him. And they pursued him and made some chumped up charges to try and convince the people that he had to be court-martialed. So he's going through this court-martial, even though Washington likes him, and accused him of many things that were not true, but some of them were. It was common for officers to go ahead and use some of the war efforts to make themselves rich. So he had made some backhanded deals, but everyone else was doing it. And he began and write that he saw that his country, that he had poured himself into, that everything wasn't even working. Like, here he was trying to serve the Continental Congress, and they stood back and did nothing while his local government was attacking him. And, his wife begins this process saying, no, you need to do this. This is a good idea. So why did he actually turn on his country? The same reasons always. It was for the sake of love and for the sake of money. And all that to say is that sin always makes sense to us at the time. We never make a bad decision because it's a bad decision. Like, it always is something that is either close to right or we think will get us something right. Ring, ring, ring. For example, you got this. Okay, so this is you, your little stick figure, and this is something you want. And if you want it really badly, then you're going to be willing to go through sin to get it.
Right now.
And for Benedict Arnold, he wanted that financial security, approval from his wife, and so for him, it was worth doing something about it. Hey, Ed? Oh, you good? It was worth to go through it. And today, we're going to see that in the lives of Hophni and Phineas, that you have two guys who are supposed to be serving the Lord, but there's something they want so badly, they do vile things in the Lord's eyes. And even their father, Eli, gets picked up on it as well. So, let's remember something. We're in the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 2. And as I've been talking about, this is not just a story. These aren't just stories that are supposed to give us information or kind of give something to fall asleep in bed at night. But it's theologically driven. It's not really in history either. It's all trying to teach a theological lesson. That's why it's laid out the way that it is. But it's always good to remember, when we're trying to do a story, we got to remember where we are. So, a couple questions to get us started. Here. Where is this happening? Oops.
Shiloh.
Yeah, it just said it. And you guys remember, what's at Shiloh? Shiloh.
Tabernacle.
The tabernacle. Okay. Yeah, so this is going on tabernacle. Here we have these brothers doing their work at the tabernacle. Okay, that's important. All right, who are the characters that we've met so far?
Eli, Hannah,
Eli, okay.
Eli, Hannah.
Hannah. Hannah the mother.
Samuel.
What was that?
Samuel.
Samuel, the son.
Son.
Yeah, the namesake for the book, kind of important. Okay, and which one of those have we seen are good people so far?
Hannah.
Hannah is considered really good. Elkanah, her husband, is honoring the Lord. Eli, we've seen so he's the high priest, right? So there's something good about him. We're going to see a little bit of shift going on today. And so we've got Eli, their sons, Samuel, and his family, kind of simplify it. But then we got to think, what is the outline for the story? And I want you to look at something with me. Just follow along in your Bible quickly, and notice if you can see a word that gets repeated again and again. Verse 12, now the sons of Eli were worthless men. And then goes on to verse 22. Now Eli was very old. 26. Now the boy Samuel continued to grow both in stature and in favor with the Lord. Chapter 3, verse 1. Now the boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord in the presence of Eli. Did you guys catch a repeated word? Now! Yes! You see, now is repeated over and over again. And you got this really weird outline to the story where we talk about these different people. You'll see there that it starts off in chapter 2, verse 11, with the boy ministering to the Lord. Okay? And then you go jump to Eli's house, not ministering, with this now. And then you jump back in verse 18 through 21, back to Samuel. And then it jumps back in verses 22 through 25, back to Eli's house, and Hophni and Phinehas. And that's kind of weird. And then you jump back again to Samuel in 26. And then 27 through 34 is all the judgment that's going to come on Eli's house. And then chapter 3, verse 1, you have Samuel again. Now, that's not very good storytelling, because one of the big complaints people make is when you shift between scenes back and forth, it gets kind of confusing.
Yeah.
Why, if this is not about the story, this is about the message. Why would they be jumping back between Eli's family and Samuel's family? Why jump back and forth? Comparison. Yeah.
Good and evil.
Good and evil, a little bit, yeah. They're trying to set up a comparison. This is important in the story. It's built into the structure. They keep saying Eli and his sons, and then Samuel and his family, because a major shift is about to happen, right? About to be replaced. So, let's walk through this together. Now, again, it's not just a normal story, so we've got to kind of notice some things as we go through it. First off, we start in verse 12 through 21. The sons of Eli were worthless, while Samuel worshipped. Can someone read verse 11 through 14 for me?
And then,
Wait, I think Victor's got it.
Elkanah went home to Ramah. The boy was ministering to the Lord in the presence of Eli the priest. Now the sons of Eli were worthless men, they did not know the Lord. Custom of the priest with the people was that when any man offered sacrifice, the priest's servant would come while the meat was boiling with 3 pounds fork in his hand. He would thrust it into the pan, kettle, or cauldron of the pot. All the fork brought up the priest would take for himself this equally Shiloh and all of his wives he would condemn.
Okay. And can someone read verses 15 through 17.
But even before the Israelites who came to Shiloh, but even before the fat was burned, the priest's servant would come and say to the person who was sacrificing, "Give the priest some meat to roast. He won't accept boiled meat from you, but only raw." I guess that was that.
No, keep going. We're not talking about it yet.
If the person said to him, "Let the fat be burned first, and then take whatever you want," the servant would answer, "No, hand it over now. If you don't, I will take it by force."
In verse 17.
This sin of the young men was very great in the Lord's sight, for they were treating the Lord's offering with contempt.
Great. Thank you guys for reading that. So we got to start off with, he gives a description of the men first. Like there's no like hiding behind it. It's like, first off, who are these men and how are they described? So it says, now the sons of Eli were worthless. They did not know the Lord. Who's calling them worthless?
Narrator.
The narrator. And why does that matter, Richard?
My Bible says scoundrels.
The scoundrels? What was that?
King James says sons of Belial.
Yeah, we'll get there in a second. There's a reason for that.
Reliable narrator.
Yeah. If we hear another voice, are other voices always correct? No, but the narrator speaks for God. So what the narrator says is true. These people are worthless men. And the greatest irony is this phrase has come up before. This idea of worthless men. You think you know, Richard?
It was earlier, it's in chapter 1, right?
Yeah. Chapter 1, verse 16. I threw up the Hebrew there for you guys too, if you really want to be interested in that. But basically, it's the sons of worthlessness, or sons of Baal of the sea, which is the King James translates it Belial. Belial, that's right, that's what it is now. It means the god Baal of the sea. And so it's used as a term that people think meant to mock someone for their worthlessness. Baal was worthless. So, you gotta remember, in 1:16, Hannah is saying, "Oh no, my Lord, I am a woman," this 15, "I am a woman troubled in spirit. I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but I have been pouring out my soul to the Lord. Do not regard your servant as a worthless woman, for all along I have been speaking out of my great anxiety and vexation." Or who is telling Hannah things that she's saying, "Oh, I'm not a worthless woman. Don't call me a worthless woman." Eli. Okay. Whose sons are actually worthless?
Eli.
Why is the author bringing this up, do you think? What's ironic about this?
Was it like condemns the woman, and then he doesn't condemn his children.
Yeah. He is so spiritually confused that he sees a righteous woman and calls her wicked, and yet in his own sons, if we skip ahead to verse 22, someone read verse 22 for me. Alan, you got it?
Okay. Now Eli was very old and kept hearing all that his sons were doing. Hearing all that his sons were doing to all Israel.
Yeah, you can stop right there. So is he seeing what they're doing?
Hearing.
He's hearing it. Like he's so blind, he does not even see their actions. He just has to hear about it from other people. And yet this righteous woman, he accuses. It's interesting, isn't it? It's kind of showing up. It's putting it in a negative light. And also, if they are the sons of worthlessness, who is their father? Eli. There's a big jab going on here. The author's pointing out of how Eli has failed his sons. And not only the worst situation isn't even their worthlessness, what's the second description? What do they not do?
Duties.
Not there yet. That's good though, it's true.
What is it?
It says, in verse 12, it says they are worthless men, and they
The
did
offering
not,
of the Lord, they're treated with contempt.
yeah, they did not know the Lord. They're leading in service and worship, right? Like they're the priests. But their knowledge is only superficial, and they don't know what his law commands. What's interesting, actually, is in chapter 3, verse 7, if you skip over there, it says, Samuel did not yet know the Lord. So Samuel isn't a born-again believer at this point. He doesn't know the Lord. But he is trying to serve in the church. These men had every chance to serve in the church, and they refused. Samuel, the young child, is still growing and trying. You know, we have to think of it this way, like, you know, God reminds us in the beginning that not every religious leader actually knows God, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's in Scripture throughout. There are lots of fake people, and so when someone asks, like, well, why would they lie? Well, they might not even realize they're lying because they don't know the Lord. They don't know the truth. William Blakey, commenting on this, says, men of corrupt lives at the head of religion who are shameless have a lowering effect on the moral life of the whole community. So where they go, they lead people. And where they take the leadership, or the way the leadership takes people, is where the group ends up. Right? If they can be doing it for the love of money, the love of respect, and it'll take the organization down. This is why the purity of the priest was so important, and the purity of the pastor and elders and leadership is so important if we want to serve. Even in 1 Timothy 2, it talks about men praying with holy hands. Like, even if you're going to pray in chapter 2 of 1 Timothy, he says, let it be with holy hands. Holiness is important. Then he goes on to say what they did wrong. Verses 12 through 16 kind of keeps going on this idea of what they did wrong. Did anyone catch that? Like, what are they doing here?
There's an observed order that they need to follow for the sacrifice. And
Yeah. So the people show up with this big pot, right? And they're telling them, like, they're sticking a fork in it, right? And pulling the food up, which is violating the observed order, right?
Right.
And what's crazy about it is it's super close to what they're allowed to do. It's very close, and they're perverting it just enough to make it wrong. And what you have here is you have out on the big outer tent around the tent of meeting there. And right here in the center, you have the little the altar, the little square thing there in the middle where they would offer their sacrifices. And so people would walk up to this, to their sacrifices, and they would want to say, all right, I'm bringing my sacrifice to be offered. And they would come in and say, aha, what you're doing, I'm going to stick my fork in, I'm going to potluck style, whatever comes up, I'm going to get. And Deuteronomy 18:3 said, this shall be for the priests due from the people, from those offering a sacrifice, whether an ox or sheep, they shall give to the priest the shoulder and 2 cheeks and the stomach. So the priests were supposed to get some of the sacrifice. But Deuteronomy 18:3 makes clear that this is what you're supposed to get. You're supposed to get the shoulder and 2 cheeks and the stomach. Not reach in, try and grab the best that you can out of the pot. And what's crazy about this, even as they do this, verse 16, the man says to him, no, let them burn the fat first and take as much as you wish. So even the lay people who are coming to the temple are saying, no, this isn't right. Like, this isn't what you're supposed to do. But the priest's servant, probably referring to the two sons, says to him, no, you must give it now, and if not, I will take it by force. What's the threat? Violence, right? So, again, imagine if you are a person going to Shiloh to worship the Lord, and you've brought your sacrifice, and you're trying to honor God and obey His commands, and a priest takes your sacrifice, and you're like, well, no, I'm supposed to give you this part. Like, no, give it to me or I'm going to hit you. I'm going to beat you up over this. How is that going to make you feel about your sacrificial effort? Are you going to be inclined to keep obeying God? Why not?
The priests don't.
Because his messages are worth following.
Yeah, the messengers aren't worth following. They're not obeying, right? And it's that the evil of the leadership is going to have an effect on the people. They were robbing from them. And not just robbing from the people, they were robbing from God. Leviticus chapter 3, verse 5 says, let the fat be burned first as an aroma pleasing to the Lord. What were the men doing with the fat here? They were trying to eat it, yeah. And in Leviticus chapter 21, it's called the Lord's food offerings. The bread of His God. But they're taking it with the fat still on it. They're stealing the Lord's portion. So in verse 17, what is God's view of what they're doing?
It was very good.
Yeah. Like this is greed. Plain and simple. It's the excess desire for more. They have been told you can have parts of the sacrifice. But for them, it's not good enough. And this is the exact opposite of contentment, being satisfied with what it has. And Jesus, in Mark 7, puts greed along with sexual morality and murder. And Paul puts it along with robbery and drunkenness and sexual sin. Like, we don't have to think of greed as being such a horrible sin, right? And yet, that's exactly what they're saying has led to this. Like, their greed for more is a vile thing in God's eyes. Again.
2 clarifications.
Yes.
Eli's sons were priests,
Yes.
but it's because Eli was a prophet? Or was how did they become priests? Because they were sons.
Eli's the high priest
Yeah.
and the judge of Israel at this time. And according to the Israelite system, it traveled from father to sons.
Okay,
So whoever the high priest was, his sons would be priests along with him. And when he died, one of them would become the high priest. It was kind of like kingship almost. That's why it all goes through Levi's line and then ultimately through Aaron, Moses' brother. So it's generational.
So it sounds like it's a dynasty.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a reason for that, because the Levites didn't have land of their own. They lived among the people, and you learned your parents' trade back then. So, if you need to learn how to work in the temple, your parents taught you how to work in the temple. But it also led to abuse here.
Okay, second clarification is verse 17. For they were treating the Lord's offering with contempt.
Yes.
The way I interpret that is because in English, with an S after the noun, it becomes possessive. So to me, I interpret that as, it's the Lord's offering, that's the offering to the Lord.
Yeah.
That's but it says it, the Lord's offering, so I was thinking, the Lord doesn't offer it.
No, I think that's what Leviticus 21 is referring to, where it's saying that the fat belongs to the Lord.
Okay, so
That the offering. So it's not the offering that He gives, it's the offering that He is due, that belongs to Him.
What's the antecedent of the men? Says the men treated the offering of the Lord with contempt.
Yeah, I think the men would be the servant.
Oh, sure.
The servant. So there's two references to servants here. There's the servant that pokes the prong, and then there's the servant who demands the fat. And it all refers back to verse 12, the sons of Eli. So it's the sons of Eli are the ones who are doing this. Good question. Thanks for clarifying this. So, during all of this, what was Samuel doing? Can someone read verse 18?
But Samuel ministered before the Lord, being a child girded with the linen ephod.
Yeah, interesting. This is kind of like verse 11. Try and notice what's the difference here. And the boy was ministering to the Lord in the presence of Eli the priest. What's different with verse 18?
The Lord the Lord's presence is here, while the verse 11 is...
He's still ministering to the
Yeah,
Lord.
but under Eli's...
Yeah.
Samuel's being obedient here.
Mm-hmm. He's being obedient, yep. But who's missing? Who's missing, Gabe?
Eli,
Eli's missing, isn't it?
on the
Like-
verse 18.
Yeah, he's serving directly before the Lord, wearing the humble clothes of a priest. Yeah, this is Chris. Like, they're doing vile things with their priesthood. He is just ministering before the Lord. And let's talk about his family. What's going on there? Verse 19 through 21. And his mother used to make for him a little robe and take it to him each year. And when she went up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice, then Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife and say, "May the Lord give you children by this woman for the petition she asked of the Lord." So then they would return to their home. Indeed, the Lord visited Hannah, and she conceived and bore 3 sons and 2 daughters. And the boy Samuel grew in the presence of the Lord. Interesting. Like, they didn't just ditch him, did they? But having given him away, he's still their son. They're still loving him and supporting him and guiding him. And we see that his family is being blessed, while Eli's family, for their wickedness, will be cursed. The author is basically setting us up for verse 30, where he says, "For those who honor me, I will honor, but those who despise me shall be lightly esteemed." He's setting this up, like, we are going to remember this. And Hannah is given far more than she has asked. She is blessed abundantly with 6 children. You know, you can think about it this way, is God's basically laying out 2 character studies right here. He's putting them in 2 paths and showing, which path do you want to take? Do you want to take the path of the humble Hannah and her son Samuel, who trust in the Lord to provide for their needs, even when things are tough? Or do you want to take the path of the sons of Eli, who say, I got to make it happen, I got to provide for my own needs, and I'm going to dig in to what I have? Clearly saying, you want the path of honoring and blessing God. And guys, it would be so easy to take advantage of the blessings God gives us and twist them to make them about us, or to take advantage and take more than God has offered. And yet God is shown here to be the kind God that when Hannah called out to him, asking for his help, what did he do? He helped her, right? God is showing that he is good when we call out to him. We do not have to be like the wicked sons who are just looking out for themselves. But then the narrator takes us back to the sons in verse 22, as we see the sons of Eli sinned while Samuel sprouted. It's like the sons are sinning while Samuel is sprouting. Verses 22 someone just read 22 through 26.
Now
very old. And he kept hearing all that his sons were doing to all Israel, and how they lay with the women who were serving at the entrance to the tent of meeting. And he said to them, "Why do you do such things? For I hear of your evil dealings from all these people. And all my sons, it is no good. It is no good report that I hear the people of the Lord spreading abroad. If someone sins against a man, God will mediate for him. But if someone sins against the Lord, who can intercede for him?" But they would not listen to the voice of their father, for it was the will of the Lord to put them to death. Now the boy Samuel continued to grow both in stature and in faith of the Lord, and also with man.
So it's not meant to be a joke, but how old is Eli?
Old.
Very old. He's making a point here. And it's less, remember, to be old in the ancient Near East was a sign of respect and esteem. This is not about saying, oh, he's old and senile. No, it's saying he's been doing this for a long time. And it seems from the context, or yeah, and he's been allowing it for a long time, and he probably hasn't said anything, but he keeps hearing. And why is it a big deal? We mentioned this before, but why is it a big deal that the author brings out that he's hearing these things?
Because he is notorious. I mean, the two sons.
Yeah.
People know. And tell Eli about his sons were doing.
It's common knowledge. Sounds like he's not directly
He's not involved with the sacrifices as he should be. This is happening, from that picture, this is happening right out in front. And yet he doesn't know it, or he did notice, but he was pretending not to notice, or what. And who he's concerned about these voices that he's hearing from other people. Not even saying, again, like, this is just, oh, it's wrong, but I'm hearing these things. And their sin is shown to be even worse, right? Because not only are they stealing from people and stealing from God, it says that they are laying with the women who are serving. So, and you have the tent of meeting right out here. And out in front, you would have a big open area where people would be staying and around. They'd be coming in and cleaning. And it is possible, it was very common practice in the world around Israel to have something called temple prostitutes. There was this wicked view that prostitutes who lived near the temple could transfer some of the God's powers to you. And it existed before Israel was even Israel. Back in Genesis 28, Judah thought his daughter-in-law Tamar was a temple prostitute. And he asked the men of the place, where is the cult prostitute who was adding them out the roadside? And they said, no cult prostitute has been here. Genesis 38:21. So old practice. Sleep with someone, get spiritual powers. And this was just a common thing. This is what people did in that world. And it is possible that this evil practice was in Israel, because eventually it does get there. In 2 Chronicles 36:14, near the end of Israel, before the exile takes place, it says, all the officers and priests likewise were exceedingly unfaithful, following all the abominations of the nations, and they polluted the house of the Lord that he had made in Jerusalem. But is he condemning the women here? No. Who is doing wrong?
The men.
The men. Which men? The sons of Eli. So if it was a statement of, there is temple prostitutes occurring, then he probably would have pointed that out. That would be in the context. There would be some condemnation by God of that here. Yet that's not stated here. The condemnation is that the priests are sleeping with these women, taking advantage of them. And we have references, a few places in Scripture, that show us that there were women who served at the tabernacle. Exodus 38, verse 8, talking about this, he says, and from the mirrors of the ministering women who ministered in the entrance of the tent of meeting. Sounds similar, right? There's these women who do this. Numbers 4:23 says, for 30 years old up to 50 years old you shall list them, all who come to do duty, to do service in the tent of meeting. So, I'll be honest, we honestly don't know exactly what these women did, but somehow they were there to serve the tabernacle and serve God, and the implication is they are doing wrong to these women, using their authority as priests to abuse them. Okay.
I guess my question is, the prostitutes were by the entrance, they were not inside.
I would say
inside.
I would say they're not actually prostitutes. I don't think they are. Prostitution was a common thing in other nations around Israel, but here in Israel, that was not the case. These are women who are just cleaners or servants of some kind or another, but they're not actually prostitutes.
Okay. Because it brings me back to the New Testament about Jesus getting mad with the people inside the temple doing business.
Yeah. And I'd say it gets there. Israel does that, where they actually have prostitutes in this inner court right here. That happens later in history. But right now, that's not what's going on. It is the abuse of the men, not the women. And Eli goes ahead and says something to his sons, right? He begs them to not do these evil acts. And what words does he keep repeating again and again? He said to them, why do you do such things? For I hear of all the evil dealings from all the people. No, my sons, it is no good report that I hear the people of the Lord spreading abroad. If someone sins against God, God will mediate for him. But if someone sins against the Lord, who can intercede?
I think they're beyond help.
Yeah.
They did what they did, and
That's kind of what the Lord says here, right?
They weren't even ashamed of it.
They weren't even ashamed of it.
They were hardened.
Yeah. He makes this great plea with them of saying, like, if you offend someone else, God can work and restore you guys. But if you offend God, who can intercede for your sins? Or a little bit of prophecy there. Who can intercede for our sins when we sin against God? Only Jesus. We need someone to intercede. But his sons do not listen to him, do they? They break the fifth commandment. They do not honor their father. And they go ahead and keep acting in their sin. But what is the reason that they keep acting in their sin? According to verse 25. What?
The Lord had hardened their heart.
The Lord had hardened their hearts. What did God want to do?
Kill them to death.
He wanted to put them to death. And this is hard because we know that according to Ezekiel 33:11, that God takes no delight in the death of the wicked. But also, Romans 9 says that he says to Pharaoh, for this very purpose I have raised you up, that I might show my power in you. So he has mercy on whoever he wills, and he hardens whomever he wills. Like the story of Pharaoh hardened his heart, and then God hardened his heart further. And there comes a time where God says grace is no longer available. But at the same time, like some pots that someone makes for great decorative vases, is Paul's argument, right? And it's beautiful. And some pots are made for bedpans to use for other things. And God has sovereign choice who he decides to work in their hearts and who he decides to allow to have exactly what they want. And in this case, God said Hophni and Phinehas can have exactly what they want, and it's going to lead to their death. But then what does Eli do? He gives this warning, he pleads with them, but what does he do? Nothing. We'll see this as you get to chapter 4, that they're still serving the Lord, and in fact they have the utmost privilege of carrying the Ark of the Covenant into battle when they are wicked men. He does nothing. And guys, this is so important because in their minds, it could be said that this is what the world around them does. The world around them slept with cult prostitutes. That's what they did. And the priests were the example of it. And today, people sleep around all the time, right? That's just what's normal. But that displeases the Lord. And we have to be careful that we do not be even like Eli, who would say, don't do that, but then actually don't do anything about it to actually help them, or to stop their sin, or to stop them from hurting other people. The Bible is not afraid of God's control here, but we are also to act as well. Because even though they don't listen, Eli is still condemned. But, do we have a Gabe? Did you have something to say?
I have a question.
Okay, possible answer.
From your point of view on this whole thing, what's the standpoint of typology with what they're doing here to the New Testament by comparative?
I don't think we're there yet. I think we're going to get there in the next section, where there's a little typology of the priests going forward, because it is a type of Christ that is laid out in the priesthood. But I wouldn't say there's no typology here, because there's no New Testament antecedent to the typology of Hoffman and Phineas, at least, not directly.
I had a question about the Eli's sons who were laying with the women.
Yes.
The women who were serving in the temple?
Yes. Yeah.
Not as prostitutes.
They're not prostitutes.
No, I knew that, yeah.
I don't think
You heard that.
They're taking advantage of
They're
them.
taking advantage of them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Or they turning doing this process.
Don't know exactly, but they somehow were serving at the temple, but
They're not prostitutes, right?
they're not prostitutes.
They're substitutes.
They're not substitutes. They're volunteers. They're not substituting for anybody.
In what way were they serving?
We don't know. The Bible doesn't say. And that's why some people think. That's why some people think that they must be prostitutes, but that doesn't make sense in the context. Somehow they had a job to do, but we don't know what it was. God doesn't tell
I
us.
guess this is my assumption. If they were prostitutes, the Lord would have been, punishment.
Yeah,
Because desecrating the temple.
exactly.
We would have called them out.
He would have called them out. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He leaves us to say, I don't think they're prostitutes.
So I don't want to fixate on this necessarily.
No, that's okay.
Back in chapter 1, verse 19, where it describes that Elkanah knew Hannah versus the word the sons of Eli laid with the woman. So
Yeah.
very, very, same act, very different.
Yeah, I'll run a check on that and see, but I'm pretty sure that every time the word know it's talked about in a loving relationship, because knowing is not just the act of intimacy, but it is an intimate relationship. Versus lay with is always used towards both, concubines and prostitutes. I think that is correct. I'll double check on that.
I'm curious.
But yeah, I think there's a different word used for a reason. So does Eli? Here's my question for you guys. Does Eli seem sincere here? Does he seem like he's sincerely begging his sons that he wants them to stop?
He is.
Doesn't do anything though.
That is
Too little, too late.
Yeah, it's too little too late.
He verbalized what he wants his sons to do, but he doesn't take any actions.
Yeah, and we're going to see here in a second that a prophet comes and rebukes him for this. It seems to indicate he purposely was remaining silent. I'm going to try and fly through this real quick. This next section is for the sake of our time. But as I said, Eli said something, and then read the last part, that his ministry is precluded while the Messiah is positioned, the typology coming up here. So in verse 27, a man of God came to Eli and said to him, now, he starts off giving a history of the priesthood, trying to explain it. And when a man of God shows up in the Old Testament, it's not usually a good thing. Like, I know a lot of us, people today want prophetic words, and yet most of the time when a prophet showed up, you were in trouble. And he gives an oracle of judgment to him. But he starts off reminding him, did I not reveal myself to the house of your father when they were in Egypt, subject to the house of Pharaoh? Did I choose him out of all the tribes of Israel to be my priest, to go up to the altar to burn incense, to wear an ephod before me? Kind of goes back to what you were saying, Gabe, that it's through the Father. And he gives him the 3 duties of the priests. He's like, this is what you were supposed to do. You're supposed to go up to my altar and sacrifice an aroma pleasing to the Lord. Secondly, you were supposed to burn incense, which was before the Lord. And they wore an ephod, which was the high priest's clothing, stripped of jewelry, just to show they represented Israel. He's like, remind me, you had a great honor. And he said, end of verse 28, I gave to the house of your father all my offerings by fire from the people of Israel. He provided for them. He gave them a privileged position with great responsibilities, and he gave them the blessing of being able to eat other people's sacrifices. Yet, he did not honor God. He says in verse 29, why then did you scorn my sacrifices and my offerings that I commanded from my dwellings? It might be said today, I've done all this for you, and you've kicked me in the face. Like, look at all I've done for you, Eli, and yet you've kicked me in the face because Eli cared more about the approval of his sons than he did God's approval. It says, 29, you honor your sons above me by fattening yourselves on the choicest part of every offering of my people, Israel. It's interesting, right? Eli's sin wasn't that he couldn't change his sons, because Ezekiel 3, verse 19 is very clear that the son dies for his own sin. But he says, yourselves are fattening. He says, by fattening yourselves, which includes Eli. And we know that Eli was quite fat. In 1 Samuel 4:18, it says he fell over backwards and his neck was broken, for he was heavy. Like, he's basically saying, think about it this way. The implications are, you've been ignoring your son's sin because you have been taking advantage of it. He wasn't the one sticking a fork in, he was the one demanding the fat, but he was eating it. He was getting rich and comfortable off his son's sin, and he did not do anything to stop them. Another phrase might be used, put your money where your mouth is, right? And it's basically like, Eli, you said you warned your sons, but you didn't stop them. You didn't risk your comfort and your wealth. And so he gives a prophecy of them falling. He says, therefore the God of Israel declares, I promised that your house and the house of your father should go in and out before me forever. But now the Lord declares, far be it from me. For those who honor me, I will honor, and those who despise me shall be lightly esteemed. Behold, the days are coming when I will cut off your strength and the strength of your father's house, so that there will be not an old man in your house. Then in distress you will look with envious eyes on the prosperity that shall be bestowed on Israel. And there shall not be an old man in your house forever. The only one whom I shall cut off from my altar shall be spared to weep his eyes out to grieve his heart. And all the descendants of your house shall die by the sword of men. And this shall come upon your 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas, shall be assigned to you, both of them shall die on the same day. It's interesting because he's making a prophecy here that's completed down the line. Because even after Hophni and Phinehas die, as we'll see in chapter 4, guess what? Phinehas has 2 sons. Ichabod, who was born right when that happens, as we know his name of the glory is left, but also Athib. And Athib gives birth to Ahimelech, who becomes a high priest. Ahimelech gives birth to Abathar. And Ahimelech is the one, as we'll see, who, when Saul kills all the people at the temple for helping David, Ahimelech is the only one who escapes. And he's able to go out, as is prophesied here, that only one will get away. And Abathar, who is the son, or is the priest, who tries to go against Solomon. When Solomon is up for the throne, he has a little battle with his brother, and his brother tries to take over instead. And so Abathar is removed as high priest. And then the high priests become the house of Zadok. We'll see as he gives a replacement promise. He says, I will raise up for myself a faithful priest who shall do according to what is in my heart and in my mind. And I will build him a sure house, and he shall go in and out before my anointed forever. And everyone who is left in your house shall come and implore him for a piece of silver and a loaf of bread, or shall say, put me in one of the priest's places that I may eat a morsel of bread. It's going to be devastating. His family is going to be cut off. And that's exactly what happens. We'll get there in the story. But in 1 Kings 2, Abathar is removed, Zadok is put in his place, and the priesthood no longer is the house of Eli because of the sins of these wicked men. But here's where the typology comes in. If you notice, he says here in verse 35, I will build him a sure house, and he shall go in and out before my anointed, my Messiah. Because one of the things we see as the story goes on is the priests of Zadok, aren't any better. They do the same stuff. Like, they actually bring prostitutes into the temple. They have wicked people in there. The only person who ever truly replaces it is Jesus, the faithful high priest. If you haven't listened to past year's messages on Sunday night, go listen to those. We've been talking about those. But we ask the question, who will intercede? Jesus is only the faithful high priest. 1 Samuel 2:28 said the responsibility was to go up to the altar. Well, guess who did that? Jesus goes up to the altar and offers a sacrifice of himself, having been made a merciful and faithful high priest in the service of God to make propitiation for the sins of his people. Hebrews 2:17. The priests were called to burn incense, which was a sign of bringing the people's prayers up to the Lord. And Jesus makes merciful intercession for us. He became man in order to sympathize with our weakness. And Hebrews 7:25 says he's able to save to the uttermost those who draw near to God, since he makes intercession for them. Jesus sacrificed himself as the great high priest. He prays for us as the great high priest. And they were to wear... They were to wear the linen ephod with the 12 stones of Israel representing the people. And Jesus, it is said in Isaiah 49:16, has our names engraved on his palm. He represents us, having become sin, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. See, again, the story is laying out this. We have an unfaithful high priest, and we think maybe Samuel's going to be the faithful high priest. But he ends up not being a priest, he ends up just being a judge, and his sons are wicked. So we think, okay, maybe it'll be this replacement guy. And guess what? It's not. the house of Zadok also sins. And it's not until the story actually gets to Jesus that we see he is the answer. When sin has come again and again, we need Jesus. Because our guilt and our sin is just like these men. We might take advantage of things. We might do wrong. And so we need a faithful high priest for us.